This is the story of the storyteller and the beggar, and it's an old Irish story. Once upon a time, there was a king, and this king, like many kings in his time, loved stories. He was obsessed with stories, and so he had in his council, living very close to his house, a storyteller of his own, whose job it was to come up with a new story to tell every single night. And the deal was that he got to live right next to the king in a beautiful mansion with his wife, with everything that they needed, all the food that they needed. They got to live in harmony. All he had to do was every night, without fail, tell a story to the king. Well, this was no problem for the storyteller. He grew to a ripe old age, never having to tell the same story twice. And the king was delighted by this. But as it happens, as many people who tell stories can tell you, and as you might be able to relate to, there was one night where the storyteller drew a blank. And in his dreams that night, no images came to him that would inspire him, to muse him to create a story. And the next day, when he went on his morning walk, and he walked by the stream that he always walked by, and he stacked stones in front of a particular tree that he always did, no inspiration came to him. All of the conjuring that he did, no story came to his mind. And he made his way back to his home, and he went in through the door and into the kitchen and said to his wife, "My dear, there's no story coming to me." "Ah, don't worry about it. You've never failed before. You always every morning, just by the time that you're eating breakfast, a story has come to you." "Yes, but that's what I'm saying. No stories. It's breakfast now, and no story has come. Oh, what am I to do? Oh, we could lose everything if I don't tell the king's story tonight. We could lose the house. We could lose the animals. We could lose our dogs. Oh, maybe we'll even lose our lives. Oh, he really does love stories." "Well," said his wife, "that is really rather concerning." Hmm. And he said, "Can you think of anything, my dear? Do you have any ideas about where I can get inspiration for this story?" And she thought to herself, and she sort of looked out of the window of the kitchen, sort of in a dreamy way, kind of her eyes unfocused, when suddenly they locked on some strange, huddled mass across the far side of the garden. She looked and she said, "Look, there's a man there. Strange man. Looks like he's wearing a bunch of rags. Maybe go and talk to him, my love. Maybe in talking to him, you'll get inspiration for the story." "Oh, pay him no mind. He's looks like a beggar. He'll probably move on. Ah, but we must pay him mind, my dear. He's on our property." "Oh, all right. It's worth a shot." And the storyteller went across the garden and went up to the man and said, "Excuse me, sir. Um, couldn't help but notice that you're in our garden. Um, what, are you okay?" "Oh, don't mind me," said the old man, covered in rags. "I'm just a lowly beggar. I've come here, and don't worry, I'll be dying soon. Uh, so It'll all be over soon enough. Well, that's rather dark. Um, well, are you sure there's nothing I can do to help? Oh, oh no, I'll just die and that'll be the end of it. And oh, what a miserable life I've had as a beggar. Oh, nothing's worked out," said the old man. Said the old man. Oh, oh, well, I sure wish there was something I could do to help you," said the storyteller. "Oh, well, there is this one thing. Uh, if you would help me before I die. Oh, uh, see, I have these dice, and, well, I really do love the game of dice. Would you be interested in playing with me?" And the storyteller said, "Well, I can't imagine that you have anything to gamble with. How would you play?" And the beggar said, "Well, I've got 100 gold coins to my name in this pouch right here, so I do have something to gamble, actually. I'd very much like to just gamble once more before I die." Well, the storyteller wasn't sure, but he looked over and saw that his wife had joined him and had been listening, and he said, "Should I do this?" And she said, "Oh, it's what harm could it be? It's his dying wish." Well, storyteller said, "All right, well, I'll play with you." And so they began playing the game of dice, the gambling game, and on the first roll, the old man, he won. And so, you know, against against the odds, you know the storyteller, he decided, well, it's luck. That's the way that gambling is sometimes, right? And they kept on playing round after round, and at first the storyteller, looking at the old man, he thought, he's just wearing rags. This must not be how he lost everything in the first place. He must not be very good at gambling. But with each round, he kept on losing until suddenly he had no his whole bag of gold. The storyteller's bag of gold that he always carried on him was completely empty, and now the old man's bag of gold was full to the brim, to bursting. "Oh, well," said the storyteller, "it's been quite a surprise. You're quite a bit more talented at this than I thought, but I'm afraid I've got nothing left to gamble." "Oh, well, I don't know about that," said the beggar. "I sure would love to play a little bit more. Um, well, what about your garden and your dogs? Uh, you know, and your house. You've got those to gamble." "I will not bet my house. I will not bet my dogs. I love my dogs. I would not ever see it be fit that I would risk gambling my house. My wife needs to have a roof over her head. That's ridiculous that you would even suggest that." Well, his wife chimed in, and she was suddenly not the voice of reason in this situation, and she said, well, but you could also win it all back. You could win all that money, that gold back that you just lost. I think it's worth a shot. Come on, his luck's got to run out at some point." And so they went on. They continued playing, and oh, but soon enough the garden was gone to the man, and the house was gone, and the dog was gone, and I said, "Oh, this can't possibly be. I've lost everything. Oh, well, no, I can't go on any longer. Oh, I guess that well, this is your house now, and you'll just have it." Well, the storyteller said, "Ah, well, doesn't seem to be quite everything. I mean, you do, after all, have have a lovely wife, and I've always wanted a wife. And, well, you've got those lovely clothes that you're wearing. Um, yeah, I think that we could continue going. And he said, What are you talking about? I, I don't even own my wife. And anyways, that's not the kind of politically correct thing that we should be talking about. And, oh, well, I find it totally offensive what you're saying. And I think that instead, no, we'll just be going because that's that. And, well, his wife said, and she sounded actually a little bit different and strange than usual. She said, Oh, don't worry about it, honey. Uh, I think it's our luck's about to turn. Yes, yes. Keep going. Keep gambling. And so the storyteller now was so terrified, and but he thought, okay, fine. My wife's saying it. This beggar, he wants me to keep going. He wants to keep playing. Maybe this is worth it. And so they kept rolling the dice, and sure enough, this time he had everything to gain, everything to lose, but he lost, and he didn't have anything left at all. He didn't even have the relationship with his wife. It was all about the worst day that he could ever possibly have imagined. Well, now the storyteller says, "You cheat! This can't be. That's not possible. That's not that you could ever win. You must have cheated." Now the beggar had stood up and he said, Not impossible, but highly improbable, and that's just the way it worked out, I'm sorry to say. Well, I wouldn't call me a cheat if I were you. If I were you, I would call me Lord." And with those words, the storyteller started trembling. He said, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. As he now realized that indeed this old man had become his lord. He had given away everything to this man. Oh, oh, he was beside himself with grief and terror of what's to come next. And the old man now stroked his beard and he said, Well, what's to do next? What's to do next? Well, now you have a choice. What kind of animal are you going to be turned into? You get to choose between a rabbit, or a deer, or a fox. Those are your choices. It's a strange question to the storyteller, but he thought through in his mind. He said, Oh, uh, well, and he thought, well, the rabbit and the deer, well, those animals get hunted, so that's no good. But also foxes get hunted, and they're not thought of very highly in these parts. But and he decided to himself that he would be turned into what he thought was the cutest of those three animals, and he decided he would be a rabbit because, after all, some people like rabbits and they take care of rabbits. So, and with that, he made the decision, and poof, he was turned into a rabbit. And suddenly, and he looked up and with his little nose scrunching and his big floppy ears, and he was quite panicked, and his wife began cackling, and she had this weird look in her eyes that he had never seen before. And truly, he was terrified, and she opened up the cage of the dogs, and the dogs ran after him, and he started running as fast as his rabbit legs could carry him, and he said, And he ran around the whole garden as the dogs were chasing after him. He didn't know what was going to happen next. And he thought the only safe place he could go was into his wife's arms. But he jumped up to jump into her arms, and she gave him a big boot across the garden. He flopped and fell into a bush of heather and was just about to be set upon by the dogs when the old man said, That's enough, and the dogs stopped as they would. It stopped in their tracks. And he said, "Rise up, that's enough. I've had enough. Torturing you, I shouldn't be so mean. I think that I've made my point." And in that moment, the storyteller returned back to his human form, and he turned to his wife, and his wife was sort of like shaking her head, being like, "Oh, oh, what happened? Oh, what was that about?" And the storyteller came back and he said, "Why would you do that to me? That's so cruel." I said, don't be so concerned," said the old man. "I'm not who you think I am. My real name is Angus of Broth, and I am the personal druid of the king. I, in fact, am not a beggar, but I heard about, through doing my magic that I do, I heard on the winds, through your dreams to my dreams, that you were having trouble coming up with a story for him tonight. And so I thought I'd help you out a little bit." He said, "Well, what does that mean? I mean, are you my lord, or..." "No, no, no. I give it all back to you. That was all just part of the plan. Please do forgive me for playing such a trick on you." He said, "Well, what about my wife? I mean, she let the dogs loose on me. That was so mean." Ah, they said, "Oh, no, 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 please. That was simply part of the magic. She had no choice in it. The same magic that I used on you, I used on her as well. So, don't worry about it. It's all returned to normal." And truly, his wife looked at him and said, "What happened the past 10 minutes? I totally was I sleeping? Was I?" It was clear that she had been under a spell as well. And so the storyteller, he was a bit angry for a moment, and then he kind of, sorry, like, "Fine, all right, well, I mean, thanks for not actually taking all my stuff. You know, that's nice." And he said, so really, like, we're good, and you're not actually a beggar, and all this stuff, my house is mine, and really? That was really intense. He said, "Yeah, yes, yes, yes. Well, but now you have a story to tell the king. Hmm? Gave you a story. Ah." And the storyteller said, "Yeah, I'd appreciate it if you didn't try helping me again in the future. That was pretty intense. Uh, but all right." And he walked back into the house, and he had some breakfast with his wife, and later he went up and he told the story to the king of what happened. He told him all about how he couldn't come up with a story, and so he met this druid, and how it all unfolded. And the king laughed so hard. He was so delighted by the story. The next night, he asked to hear the same story again and again. And in fact, for the rest of their lives, that was the only story that the king wanted to hear from that point forward. And so, no longer did he have to come up with another story. And that's the story of the storyteller and the bard. I meant, and the beggar. Yes.